as public finance officer is concerned in the public sector, there are many things that we are also meant to have idea of. What you are meant to be looking at here, we start from the area of Accountant General of the Federation. But before the Accountant General of the Federation, there are other things. There are other officers they also meant to have idea of, starting from the Minister of Finance. Minister of Finance serves as the head of the Finance Ministry. Is an officer. Hello, Asim. Fine, o. Mo ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ mo ti ń ṣe class. Wọ́n ṣe méjì mẹ́ta ló wà ń bẹ̀ tẹ́lẹ̀ ní wọ́n á ní kí n fún wọn time kan fi join. Okay. Ọ̀pọ̀ mo mọ nǹkan tó tí wọ́n ṣe tí join báyìí. Tí n bá bẹ̀rẹ̀ tó ń sìn tó lú ẹ bẹ̀rẹ̀ calculation sìn náà tó máa bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní máa join náà tó máa complain. But àwọn join báyìí wọ́n join lẹ́yọ̀ kọ̀ọ̀kan díẹ̀díẹ̀. Bóyá wọ́n dẹ̀ lọ kírun ní àdúgbò. Okay. Hello.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. What we are meant to look at today is public finance officer. Who are the public finance officers? The public finance officer ranging from the Accountant General to the officer in charge of oath book. But before all this Accountant General or the Auditor General, there is another star. There is another officer we also need to have idea of, which is Minister of Finance. Minister of Finance is an officer appointed on political ground to handle the Ministry of Finance, charged with the responsibility of managing the economic situation of the nation, of advising the government on financial matters, of advising the government on investment matters. Anything has to do with what? Investment. Also to look inwardly and outwardly of how government can generate revenue. Looking at it from the aspect of borrowing, from the aspect of managing the national debt. What are the sources of finance? The government can also look inwardly, how they can also generate revenue. What are the streams of revenue government can look into for them to be able to meet up with their aims and objectives. It's also meant to advise the government, federal government, and the state government level, because at the federal level we have the Minister of Finance. At the state level, we have Commissioner Finance. And on that note, they are there to the Commissioner is meant to assist the state government on all the same functions I've stated out that they are meant to look inwardly on. Then looking at it from another area, it is also the duty of this honorable minister to assist the government on budget plan. It's not meant to prepare the budget, but the budget will pass through his or her table and see what is the outcome of that budget and also recommend any adjustment in that budget before being presented to the Mr. President. And Mr. President is now meant to present the budget to the National Assembly for approval. And looking at it, we have what we call different types of budgets. But the budget we are referring to here is not cash budget or this other budget. We are talking in terms of national budgets. What is national budget? National budget is the budget to be prepared by the federal government or state government in order to estimate their proposed revenue and estimate their proposed expenditure. This is divided into three forms. We have what we call the surplus budget, we have what we call this deficit budget, and we have what we call balance budget. There are purpose, there are need for this budget. Anytime federal government is looking inwardly on surplus budget, they are trying to control the economic situation in terms of inflation, that there is too much money in the economic system. Minister of Finance meant to advise the federal government on that matter, on how they can go about it. There are different policies to be adopted. They can use central bank using monetary policy to control the economic situation. They can also make use of the federal government in order to control the economic situation using what we call fiscal policy. Under the monetary policy, there are instruments to be used by CBN in controlling the total money in circulation, controlling the economic situation. Under this, we have what we call open market hormone. We have what we call moral suasion. We have what we call discounted bank rate. There is what we call special information. There is what we call cash ratio. All these are the instruments to be used by CBN to control the economic affairs of the nation through CBN. The present Minister of Finance, Wale Edun, I'm not seeing what he's doing as a minister. I have not seen any contribution he's putting in place on the Nigerian economy, because the economy is not doing well at all. Now, let's ignore that. We've been able to look at it. Let's see what the book is saying before we move to the next level. Now, Accountant General of the Federation, in accordance with the financial regulations, that is an act, Financial Regulation Act. The Accountant General of the Federation is the chief accounting officer of the receipt and payment of the Federation, saddled with responsibility of general supervision of accounting of all the ministry and extra-ministerial departments, and the preparation statement of the nation, as may be required by the Honorable Minister of Finance. Simply means Accountant General is meant to report to the Minister of Finance. He or his representative shall have access to any reasonable time to all documents, information, and records that are needed for the preparation of the account of the ministry and extra-ministerial department. What we are saying here is this: I've made mention of the role of the Minister of Finance, what is meant to do, and the Accountant General of the Federation, being the chief account officer who is in charge of the receipt and payment of the Federation. Finance is charged with responsibility of managing the receipt and payment of the Federation at the federal level, while at the state level, it is the duty of the Commissioner Finance to look inwardly on the receipt and payment of the state. To look inwardly on the receipt and payment of the state. At the state level, the commissioner is having the responsibility of doing what Accountant General is meant to do, while at the federal level, it is the duty of the Accountant General to look at the receipt and payment of the nation, to manage it, and also to prepare annual financial statement or annual financial report for the public revenue and public expenditure, and order the assets that are meant to be reported in the financial statement. It's the duty of this particular officer general. Now, there are duties being given to the Accountant General of the Federation in line with Financial Regulation Act. He has the power. He has what? The power to access the book of accounts, of all time without giving them any information. He has the power to access the ministry books of accounts at any time. He also has the power to request for any information and explanation necessary for his duty to carry out his own responsibility for the federation. He also has the power to organize ad hoc investigation when there is when they notice there is a fraud. These are the power given to the Accountant General according to the Financial Regulation Act. What are the functions of the Accountant General? One, primary function of the Accountant General is to manage the receipts and payments of the nation. Is there to prepare the financial report of the nation. Is there to put in place, the Accountant General of the Federation is also there to put in place what we call internal control in all ministries. Is there to set up accounting system for all the ministries. Is there to put in place accounting manual that will guide all the accountants, all the accounting officers in all the ministries. Is there to account for the receipt and payment of all the ministries to the for the federation. Is also there to manage the federation account. Is there to manage the federal account and also to manage the federation account. These are the general function of the Accountant General of the Federation. Let's look at what the book is saying. Now, number one, it serves as the chief account officer for the receipt and payment of the government of the Federation. It's meant to supervise the accounts of the federal ministry, extra ministerial departments, and other arms, which means it's responsible for all the account of the ministry. They are meant to all the account officer in each ministry are accountable to the Accountant General of the Federation. Collation and prepare the account, which has made mention of. Statutory. Now, it's meant to collate and prepare and publish the statutory financial report of the federal government at any other statement of account required by the Ministry of Finance. Manage the federal government investment. Is there to evaluate whether the investment is viable or non-viable, which is meant to report to the Minister of Finance on that. Minister of Finance will now advise the federal government on that matter. Is meant to prepare the federal account and also manage the federation account. The federal account is the account refers to as Consolidated Revenue Fund account. Is there to manage that. Is there to also manage the Development Fund account, the Contingency Fund account, and other public funds. Are we together? It's also there to establish and operate the federation account, which is part of what I've made mention of. It's also there to supervise the federal pay offices. It supervises to all the federal pay offices. How? All the federal pay offices, they don't have what? They have what we call sub-account officer who is there to manage, but they are meant to report to what? To the Accountant General of the Federation at each state capital of the Federation. Also to conduct routine inspection of the book of accounts. All these I've explained before. Now, also there to look into the compliance level, ensure that there is compliance level in all ministry in terms of what? Financial Regulation Act, that to serve as a guide to all the ministry account officers. Verifying their stock, looking at their manual at all levels. That is the function of the accounting or chief account officer. It's also there to manage the treasury of the federation. Are we together? Are we together? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. These are the roles and responsibility of Accountant General of the Federation. It's there to put in place the accounting system. Now, if I may ask, what do we mean by internal control? What do we mean by internal control? Internal control refers to various set of control put in place by the Accountant General in order to control the risk assets of the organization, of the federation. The internal control includes the following: organization, segregation of duty, management control, physical control, personnel control, arithmetic and accuracy control. All these are the internal control to be set on motion by the Accountant General of the Federation. And authorization and approval. The person that will initiate, that is purpose of the segregation of duty. Someone that initiate an idea of accounting transaction cannot be the same person that will approve this particular transaction. And it will not be the same person that will authorize it. That is the purpose of what we call segregation of duty. Authorization is even from what? The person that initiates the transaction. Formulation of accounting policy belongs to this particular officer called Chief Account Officer, which is the officer in charge of Treasury Department. Is there to monitor the revenue of the Federation and also monitor the accounting system of the Federation, either computerized or not computerized. All these must be duly followed. The next officer on the agenda is accounting officer. That's another person. Accounting officer is referred to as the permanent secretary of the ministry or head of the extra ministerial department. The permanent secretary of the ministry serves as the accounting officer who is there to account of all the resources, of all the revenue, of all the expenditure in his care ministry with the following responsibility. It must ensure there is a high level of compliance. It must ensure the receipts are being accounted for, the revenue receipts are being accounted for properly. The balancing of accounts every day must also be ensured. It must ensure that all the expenditure are duly recorded. All the necessary reports are duly sent to the Accountant General of the Federation accounts. And this must be done on a daily basis. It's also saying what is different from what I've made mention of. In accordance with the Government Financial Regulation Act, accounting officer are the permanent secretary of the ministry and head of the extra ministerial department. They are saddled with responsibility of day-to-day financial affairs of the ministry and extra ministerial department. Anything else with what? Financial affairs. In terms of the receipts and payments, is there to manage that situation and make a report to the Accountant General of the Federation. What are the functions of this officer? Accountant officer means permanent secretary of the ministry or the head of the extra ministerial department and other arms of government who is in full control and it is responsible for human, material, and financial resources which are critical inputs in the management of the organization. Critical input. Critical input is an officer who is there to look inwardly into the affairs of the ministry. Is an officer that will think of how to apply those principles being set on motion by the Accountant General of the Federation and look at the compliance level, look at the internal control that are meant to be put in place in line with what is being designed by the Accountant General of the Federation for each ministry. Now, Look at it. This account officer shall, one, be responsible for the safeguard of the public fund, which is what we have made mention of. Regularity and what? Preparatory of expenditure under his control. Simply means he's there to manage the public fund in his care. He's also there to manage the expenditure in his care in terms of what? Preparatory, that is, and that has to do with what? Fund that is being given to him to run the affairs, the ministry affairs that will enable the what? The ministry to generate revenue for the government. All these are meant to be duly looked inwardly. Observe and comply fully with the check and balance spelled out in the existing financial regulations in terms of receipt and what? Disbursement of fund. It must go with what? Compliance level. You cannot just disburse money without looking inwardly on the compliance level, and accountability is very necessary. Note that his accountability does not case by virtue of what? Leaving the office. What we are saying here is that the man can say he can leave the office at any time, but they can call him back for any investigation if they notice anything as the permanent secretary and accounting officer, chief accounting officer of that ministry. Is the accounting officer the head of what? And we say, what do you call it? Extra ministerial department. They can call that particular person back to come and look at it, what has happened on this particular matter for his tenure as accounting officer. Then, as regards to what we have made mention of, it doesn't differ from what we have listed. That's part of the function of the account officer. Ensure the proper budgetary and accounting system are established. Maintain the enhancing internal control and accountability and transparency. We've talked about that. Ensure there is essential management control tools put in place in minimizing waste and fraud. He must also make sure that there is nothing like fraud or anything that will serve as error should be minimized. Then it's also there to look inwardly on what? Rendering what? Monthly and financial accounting returns and transcript. Transcript is meant to be prepared by the account officer on monthly basis. What do we mean by transcript? Transcript is a report that gives the summary of the inflow and outflow in ministry. It gives the details of the inflow and outflow in the ministry in terms of above the line and below the line items. Above the line items are those items that are stated in the budget, while below the line are those items, either revenue items or expenditure items, that are not part of the budget. That is what we call above the line and below the line. Above the line are those revenue or expenditure items that are part of the budget, while below the line are those revenue or expenditure items that are not part of the budget. That is what we call transcript. It gives the summary of all the financial transactions in the ministry on a monthly basis. That is what is meant to be prepared, which is meant to be accomplished by other documents, depending on the nature of that accounting officer, whether it's a self-control account officer or non-self-control accounting officer. A self-control accounting officer are meant to submit the transcript, are also meant to put in place reconciliation, are also meant to put in place the copy of the cash book, not the original copy of the cash book, but copy of the cash book, which will be submitted, and certification of the cash and bank balances. All these and the reconciliation, the vouchers, copies of the vouchers are meant to be summarized and to be submitted to the Accountant General's office. Copy will be submitted by sub-account officer after preparation of what? After duly reconciliation of the account. After cash book has been prepared on a daily basis, then they will extract all this in preparing the transcript on a monthly basis. Now, it is also the duty of this particular officer to ensure the safety and proper maintenance of all government assets under his care. Ensure personal appearance before the public account committee. What do we refer to as public account committee? Public account committee is a committee put in place by the National Assembly in line with Financial Acts, also to look inwardly on internal control system and the account prepared by the accounting officer in line with the report submitted by the Auditor General for the Federation, to see whether the financial report is really showing true and fair view. All these are the responsibility of the public account, account officer, in line with what the report is meant to be put in place. Aside that, it's also there to accurate collection and accounting for all the public money received and expended by him through the transcripts and other documents. It also there to put in place to ensure there is prudence in spending of the public fund in his care. Ensure there is proper assessment, fee, rates, and charges are made where necessary. All these are the responsibility. Also there to ensure there is internal control guard and regulations for their properly ensure and security are being put in place on on those revenue being put in his care. And also ensure prompt collection of the revenue, budget preparation and estimate also must be put in place and duly to be submitted to the Accountant General, which is going to be forwarded to the ministry in charge of budget and planning. All these are the responsibility of the accounting officer, which is the head of the ministry. Any question? Now, the next one is sub-account officer, sub-accounting officer. In accordance with the Government Regulation Act, this officer who is entrusted with the receipt, custodian, and disbursement of public funds is required to maintain one of the recognized cash book. What we are saying is this officer is rather than this sub-account officer is rather lower in rank than, and this officer is meant to manage a particular recognized cash book, which is called treasury cash book. An officer that is also there to manage the federal pay office, the police pay office, custom area pay office, director of finance and accounts. All these are this responsibility of sub-account officer. This officer is lower in rank than the accounting officer of the ministry. Those states where there are no ministry, we can see the federal pay office officer, and this federal pay officer is referred to as sub-accounting officer and is there to manage treasury cash book, mean treasury cash book. We will discuss how the cash book look like as we are going. What are the functions of this officer? Almost likely with the one we have discussed, but let's look at it. Ensure the proper system of accounts as described by the Accountant General. Accountant General is meant to prescribe accounting system for them. It's also ensure that there is ensure the application of the internal control put in place by the Accountant General of the Federation. Exercise supervision on the receipt, of the public revenue and ensure prompt collection of the public revenue put into his care. Prompt bringing into account, that is, prompt preparation of account into head and subhead. What we mean by head and line, and in what expenditure line we have what we call the head and subhead. The head is refers to the what? To the number attached to a particular revenue. Under this so-called revenue, there are sub revenue. Those sub revenue we call it subhead with the number. It could be, if the head is 1,000, then the subhead can be 1,001. Subhead can be 1,002, depending on the revenue. We also have it as in line with what? Expenditure. Expenditure is also in that particular line where we have the head and subhead. Also in ministry and subhead in ministry, in terms of the what? Department, they label them with the head and what? Subhead. There are a way in which we classify, we call it classification, into head and subhead in terms of the revenue collected or in terms of expenditure or the public money being expended by this particular officer. All these are meant to be properly kept in order to cash flow. Also to ensure proper provision is made for safety keeping of public funds, securities, stamp, receipts. All these are meant to be properly kept and be accounted for. It has value. Stamp, receipt, ticket, license, and other valuable documents. Exercise supervision over all officer under his what? Authority. He must dare to say that there is a proper supervision of all other officers under his what? Umbrella. All the charges are also being classified into different head and subhead based on disbursement. That is, disbursement of public. Any appropriation that has been approved by the government. There is no way the ministry or what? Any money without authorization coming from the Minister of Finance. Minister of Finance will release warrant to the Accountant General to release funds for the officers in charge. They cannot spend money without the authorization of what? Or authority coming from the Minister of Finance. And the only authority that can come is the what? The use of warrant. That will be the next what? Topic we are going to discuss. Because we have different types of warrants and different purpose for warrants. All these are the functions of this so-called sub-account officer. And this sub-account officer is meant to manage the main treasury cash book. How does main treasury cash book look like? The cash book has what we call 17 columns. And it has debit side and credit side. The debit side is refers to the receiving side, while the expenditure side is refers to the what? To the payment side. When money is going out, they credit the account. When money is coming in, the account will be debited. How does the cash book look like? Now, this is the main treasury cash book format. It is one of the main functions of sub-account officer as stated above. We'll discuss about it in line with Financial Regulation Act 201. Sub-account officer is meant to keep the treasury cash book. How does the treasury cash book look like? Now, we have the TRV, that is what? Treasury Revenue Voucher number or date. We have from whom receivable. We have treasury receipt number. We have classification into head and subhead. We have number of bank credit slip. We have what we call gross amount. We have what we call cash book. We have what we call cash. We have what we call bank. We also have what we call at the credit side now. All these, the first one, treasury revenue voucher or date. That's column 1 at the debit side. From whom receivable, that is column 2 from the debit side. Treasury receipt number, column 3 from the debit side. Classification into head and subhead, that is column 4. Number of bank credit slip, That is the teller that they used to pay the money into the bank. They need the teller number. That is number 5. We have what we call gross amount, which is the total figure of the amount coming in, whether it is in forms of cash or it is in forms of check. They will add the two together to give you the gross amount. Then they will now split it into the what? Cash and bank. If the issue check is going to go to bank, if the issue cash is going to go to the what? To the cash. Then the credit side start from what? Treasury PV number. We have departmental PV number. We have what we call to whom payable. We have classification into head and subhead. We have payee bank. We have the check number. We have the gross amount. We have deduction or cash. We have what we call bank or net. Under this part where we have deduction, when government is meant to pay money out to suppliers and they want to issue check and they want to make deduction from the money, that deduction is what they refer to as deduction or cash. If the person pay cash or they deduct part of the money, it is the net that will be paid to the person in forms of check. Then that will also be at what? At the bank side. That is how these so-called cash books look like. Any question before going to the next level? Any question?
No question, sir.
Okay. Now let's go on. I don't know what happened to the platform that only 4 people are on the platform. The next officer is what we call revenue collector officer. The revenue collector officer is officer rather than what? Is officer rather in rank than the sub-account officer. This officer is tasked with responsibility of collecting specific forms of revenue, who is also there to manage revenue collector cash book. This officer is there to manage all the assets, public assets or documents that is being put into his care in terms of the receipt, in terms of stamp, in terms of license, in terms of what? In terms of post money order or postal order. All these are documents that are meant to be managed by this so-called officer called revenue collector officer. Is meant to collect specific forms of revenue as being described in the Financial Regulation Act by the Accountant General of the Federation, who is meant to look or monitoring what the officer is being charged with responsibility of doing. Now, this officer, let's look at what the book is saying in terms of the function and the book that is meant to manage. This is an officer apart from the sub-account officer who keeps the financial receipts and collects specific forms of revenue on behalf of the government. He is expected to keep a cash book. The revenue collector must not spend money out of this collection. He is therefore asked to account for the collection received intact. Simply means this he only tagged with the responsibility of collecting and remitting the money to the Treasury Department office. The Treasury Department office is referred to as what? Accountant General office. That officer must not spend kobo from that particular account. And at the same time, what are the functions, the roles to be played by this officer? Number 1, exercising supervision over the receipt of public revenue and ensure there are prompt lodgement in the book in the bank as at one day. Simply means there must be cash limits that will be given to this officer. This officer must have what we call cash limits. Another one, promptly reflecting the account under the proper head and subhead. That is, he must account for the what? Collection of the revenue under different head and subhead. it must also see that proper provision is made for the custody of the public fund and security. Maintenance of the efficient internal check, that is, there must be what? Internal control against the occurrence of what? Malpractice. Checking of all cash book, the stamp in his care. That's why we say he must manage all the documents and secure the what? All those assets in his care. In terms of the cash book, in terms of stamp, in terms of what? Stamp register. All these must be properly what? Accounted for. And this is what we call revenue collector cash book. That is the cash book to be managed by the revenue collector officer. This has 8 columns. We have the date, we have the revenue receipt number, we have classification into head and subhead, from whom receivable, we have the amount, it also has debit and credit side. The debit side is having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns, while the credit side is having 3 columns. Any question? Before going to the next one, any question?
Nothing, sir.
Okay. The next officer is what we refer to as impress holder officer. Impress holder officer. Impress holder officer. This is an officer charged with responsibility. This is an officer charged with responsibility. This is an officer charged with responsibility of disbursing public what? Money allocated to his care on minor expenses. Minor expenses. Minor expenses. This officer will receive what? Will receive cash flows. This officer will disburse the cash flow on the minor expenses. We have different types of what? Impress system to be managed. We have what we call standby impress system, and we also have what we call special impress system. The standby impress system is one that normally being operated on a yearly basis, on a day in, day out. While special impress system, that one is organized for special projects. Now let's read from the book and see what is saying, whether it's different from what I've explained. According to the financial regulation, this is an officer other than sub-account officer who is charged with the disbursement of public money, whose voucher cannot be presented immediately for sub-account officer. It has to keep the impress cash book. Impress system. An impress system is defined as a small amount of money set aside to meet petty cash payments. The voucher of which cannot be posted in the main treasury cash book by the sub-account officer immediately. They will collect everything and that will be reported to the sub-account officer. That officer will now post that into the main treasury cash book. For this officer called petty cash officer or impress holder officer will be there to manage minor expenses. Will be there to manage minor expenses. Types of what? Impress. We have what? Standing impress and we have special impress. Standing impress. This impress is operated from the commencement to the end of the year. That is on a yearly what? Basis. We do that. That's from January to 31st. Why the special? That one is meant for special projects. Commence for a financial year until the objective for which it's been set up been achieved. It is for special project and it was upon the attainment of that particular objective. That is. And what are the conditions for? These are the likely questions they normally ask. Condition for operating impress. 1. Ministry which intend to operate impress has to apply in writing has to apply in writing to the Accountant General of the Federation, stating the amount and the purpose of that particular impress. The Accountant General of the Federation and the account officer of the ministry or extra-ministerial department will issue impress after the Minister of Finance has conveyed the authority for that annual general impress warrant. That is what I told you. Before they can do anything, warrant must come from the Minister of Finance. He's an officer that gives authorization. And this particular book is meant to be managed. We call it impress holder cash book. It's meant to be managed by impress holder officer. This book has what? It has 12 columns. That 12 columns will later subdivided into different other columns under the analysis column, where we have the based on the operations of the department. But when we are preparing it, we adopt the system. But we have the date, we have reimbursement details, we have number of bank credit slip, we have what we call cash bank, we have the date, we have token payable, we have PV number, we have check number, we have cash, we have bank, we have the analysis column. All these are the content of this so-called impress holder cash book. The date, the reimbursement details, number of bank credit slip, we have the cash, we have the bank, if they are operating under bank. Then at the credit side, we have the date, we have to whom payable, that is the purpose of the payment. Then we have the voucher number, we have the check number, we have the cash book, we have the bank, then we have the analysis column. All these are the details we are referring to. Okay, now the last officer here, the last officer in this part is the officer controlling expenditure. That is officer in charge of vote book. This officer is charged with responsibility of monitoring public expenditure. This officer is charged with responsibility of monitoring public expenses. The government expenditure is there to determine the time that is due for payment and when the payment to make payment for the transaction, which must, there is no extra budgetary spending when it comes to this. He can't spend anything that is outside the budget. This officer is meant to manage what we call vote book, which we refer to as what? Vote departmental allocation book. That book is referred to as memorandum account that is meant for monitoring public expenditure or government spending. What are the functions of this officer? These are the functions of this officer. The supervision of the government expenditure and ensure that no payment is made without proper authority. No payment is made without proper authority. Are we together? Number 2, prompt charge into the account under head and subhead of the disbursement. That is, he must dare to consider the head and subhead of those word disbursements. Those money that is meant to be discharged out must be going into under head and subhead. We also have what we call ensure that all books are correctly posted and kept upon the date. Ensure the funds are available under appropriate head and subhead to meet payment of specific voucher based on what has been designed for him or her. Producing what required by the Accountant General and the Auditor General at all times in terms of cash, stamp, and order that is in his care. He must ensure that there is no extra budgetary spending. He must ensure proper monitoring of government spending. And is there to keep the vote book. Is an officer charged with the responsibility of keeping vote book. What is vote book? Vote book is the books used for monitoring government expenditure and ensure that there is no extra budgetary spending. Reasons for keeping vote book: for efficient monitoring of government expenditure, to show on-commitment balance at a glance. There's when we in the vote book, there's what we call uncommitted balance. There's what we call liability reference. There's what we call liability incurred. There is what we call liability clear. There's what we call uncommitted balance. There's what we call remark. All these must be duly monitored. There is what we call dates. There's what we call particulars. All these we have the amount. We have what we call the cumulative total. We have the amount, we have the cumulative total, then we have the balance. All these will be duly monitored by this particular officer. Now, let's see what that particular book is talking about in terms of the creditor, in terms of the liability of the government, and the head and subhead, that those things are meant to be properly kept. Now, this is the book. We have the head, we have the subhead, we have what we call service. We have the expenditure side, we have the liability side, we have AGW. What does that AGW mean? It means annual general warrant. We have AIE, authority to incur expenditure. We have order. Then we have the total, the amount that is what? The amount that is appropriated will be stated as total. Then we have the line number, we have the date, we have the PV number, we have the particular, we have the payment, we have cumulative payment, we have the balance, liability reference, liability incurred, liability cleared, we have the outstanding liability, we have the remark, uncommitted balance, we have line 14 and line 15. This is the details of what we refer to as vote book. Then other definition of terms. We have below the line, I've discussed that. We have what we call above the line, I've discussed that. These are the accounts created, controlled by the Accountant General of the Federation, of which the time of preparation of budget, the exact amount of the income received and expenditure incurred cannot be easily ascertained. That is why they call it what? Below the line. We don't know them. They are not traceable to the budget. But above the line will surely be part of the budget. See, above the line account, these are expenditure budget. We also have it as revenue, not only expenditure. We have the revenue above the line. We have the revenue below the line. We have the expenditure below the line. We have the expenditure above the line. Are budgeted for in the estimate. They are traceable to the budget. And at the time of the preparation of the budget, they can be reasonably be ascertained. We know the amount to exact amount of the income and expenditure. All this refers to as below the line and above the line. Federal pay officers, talked about it, perform the same function as the sub-account officer, which we have discussed that. Federal Regulation Acts. These are the rules governing the management of the public fund. It guides the what? The rules and regulations guiding those officers that are meant to manage the public fund. The accounts they are meant to put in place, how they are meant to comply. Budget control concepts, we also have such. What are the government are meant to undertake in preparing the prior year budget? All these are stated. Token votes also was stated. Current account is also stated. Token vote is actually for provision of head and subhead for expenditure or for revenue. That is what we refer as token vote, which is defining the head and subhead of revenue and expenditure in the public sector. That is what we refer as token vote. We have what we call current account. That is the balances between one account and the other. In forms of the principal and what agent. We have what we call child juvenile. That is the allowance given to an officer that is separated from what? From the family or the children. That is what we call child juvenile allowance. Yeah, we have different questions under this part that we are meant to look at. Any question? Any question? Any question?
No question, sir.
Yeah. Absent of no question.
No question, sir.
I think this has been forwarded to you guys already. Abi?
Yes, sir.
What we now do is this. This is already past 8, and the class is meant to stop when? 10 o'clock. If we start now, we cannot finish it. But nevertheless, maybe we should solve one question. Do you need a prepared solution, or you want me to solve it like this? To be
What?
picking the figure one after the other.
We want you to solve it, sir.
I should solve it, Abi.
Yes.
What do you say? I should solve it.
Yes.
Okay, no problem. Okay. Now let's look at that part of the question. I'm meant to use the Excel.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that is what we are going to use to prepare the account. Now, do you have the question at your hand? Open it at your hand. We are meant to discuss it. Now, oh yeah, let's look at it. What is the name of the organization? Can you read it?
Copy what page?
What is it?
The page, please. That's the page number.
I mean the question they asked us to do.
Yes, I'm asking what is the page number of the question?
Okay. That is page number 7. Ministry of Finance of Giko State, where you are an account supervisor. The following transaction, I believe you can answer the number 1 question. That's why I don't want to discuss that, because that one is written. What is account officer? We'll discuss that. The functions of account officer, we'll discuss something similar to that. That's why we're going to question 2 part, which says what? In the Ministry of Finance of Giko State, where you are an account officer, supervisor, the following transaction took place in the typical day of the year of September 2020. We have 1. We have Mr. A. Ayotunji and Arms paid 10,800,000 and 5,500,000 being tax and contractor registration fee respectively. C. Treasury receipt number 65 and 66 are dated 16/9/2020 were accordingly issued. The payment which were made in bank, lodgement, logo bank to C184860 and C1C60868 dated 25/9/2020 were received into the head and subbed of 001 and 419 and 420. On the 26th September 2020, the state Ministry of Education made payment for the feeding students and WAEC examination fee totaling 10 million and 40 million respectively through the CBN check number AB8. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, they now said that the payment made by the Ministry of Education was charged into head 2004 and subhead 7 and 9 respectively require draw both debit and credit side of the typical treasury cash book. 2. Post the above transaction into the cash book. Ignore the balance brought forward and balance carried down. Now, in this scenario, they don't want you, there's no opening balance, they don't want you to look into the closing balance, but you should just have an idea of how to post this kind of transaction. Are we together? Are we together?
Yes, sir.
Now, let's now go. What's the name of the organization? Ministry of Finance.
Deposit.
Okay, we have the debit. We do the credit later. Then we have the date, Abi. What are the headings? We have TRV slash date. Is that not so?
Yes, sir.
Then what's the second transaction?
From whom receivable?
From whom receivable. The next one,
Treasury receipt number.
treasury
Receipt number.
receipt number. Okay, followed by classification, Abi.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Classification. We have head and subhead. Then the next one is what? Gross number of bank credit slip. Is that not so?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Number of bank credit number of bank credit slip. The next one is what? Gross amount, Abi?
Gross amount. Yes.
Followed by cash. Then bank, Abi?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Then at the credit side, we have what? Treasury PV number. Is that not so?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Then we have departmental PV number. Department PV number. After that department PV number, we have to whom payable, Abi?
Yes, sir.
After to whom payable, what do we have? Classification. Is that not so?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Then after that, we also have
Bank.
payee bank.
Yes, sir.
After the payee bank, what do we also have?
Check
Check
number.
number.
Check number. After the check number, we have deduction,
Gross
Abi?
amount. Gross
Go to
amount.
gross amount. Gross amount. Then after the gross amount, what do we also have? We
Deduction
have
cash.
deduction slash cash.
Yes.
And we have
Bank
bank
or next.
slash net. And this will be at the credit side. These have not been tested for a while, but we don't know. It might be your time. that will be just manage to try to solve question on your own. When you are doing that, you have more knowledge about it.
Yeah.
Treasury, sorry, I want to put the title Treasury Cash Book.
I'd like to ask a question.
What do you say?
I'd like to ask a question.
You are free, you can talk.
Okay, so why as this is, I'm going to write this in the book because we're going to use an Excel.
Can you please speak up? I can't hear you.
I said, as wide as this solution table looks like, are we going to work on a booklet or an Excel sheet with giving for?
You will turn your booklet upside down, but you will not write on the margin. It's allowed.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Uh-huh. Now, oh yeah, let's pick those things one after the other. Before time is going to run on our side. Now, the first one, oh yeah, read it. Can you read it from your hand? I can do the posting from my hand here. You can see it on the
All right.
yeah.
The Ministry of Finance, or do I start from the first one? Mr. A. Ayotunji Anamusa paid 10,800,000 and 5,500,000 being tax and contractor registration fee respectively.
What was the first day of the first transaction?
December
December what?
20XX.
That is December 15.
There's no year on it, it just gives 20XX.
That's the treasury receipt number they issue dated 16/9/2020. Why the bank draft they raise? That is when the money is paid to the bank. That is not when the receipt is issued. That we go with this. Now, let's go. We have 16/09/2020. The first person happened to be what?
Ayotunji.
Mr. Ayotunji. Okay. What does Ayotunji paid for?
Tax 10,800,000.
What do you call it?
Tax.
Tax.
Tax and contractor registration fee.
That's the first one. Let's treat the first one first. Then the
Tax.
second transaction. Now, take note. Let me do it this way. In case you are seeing something that is having the this will have an error sign. Now, assuming this is a monthly transaction we are looking at, then our opening balance will be 01 09 2020. This will be balance brought forward. But we don't have any figure in here. Dash, dash. Do you understand? Do you get it now? We don't have
Yes,
any.
sir.
Now, we now come here. The first person, Mr. A. Ayotunji, what is own treasury receipt number? They usually
65.
65. We put 65 here. Now, what is the head and subhead created?
Head is 1001.
Is it the head you are referring to?
Yes.
1001. Now, 1001 slash, what is the subhead?
419.
419, straight away. Then, what is the number of bank credit slip? The draft that they put in place, bank overdraft, that is what you are meant to recognize here as the,
C184.
what do you call it?
C184 860.
1
84
84
860.
1 84
860.
860. Is that clear?
Yes.
What is the amount paid by Tunji?
10,800,000.
10,800,000. That's all. As a gross amount. But they use bank draft as a payment, then that will now appear in the bank, not cash. The entire figure will appear here. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The second one. Up date, Abi.
Yeah, the same date.
What's the name of that person?
Amusat.
What is the treasury number issued to the person?
66.
66. Then this will also be 1001 slash what?
420.
420. What about number of bank credit slip?
C160.
C
160.
160
868.
868. Amount
5,500,000.
5,500,000. The same thing here is what we have done. What's the next one?
On the 26th of
Excuse me, I saw some comments, some chats here. Let me check. I'm coming. Okay. We've answered that already. Okay. Now let's continue to the next one, please.
On 26 September 2020.
26, Abby?
Yes, sir.
9, 20. What happened there?
The State Ministry of Education made payments for the feeding of students and WAEC examination fee.
They pay to who? To whom payable? Who?
Minister of Education, Minister
For the first one, what that one? What does it mean for?
feeding of
So
students.
why?
Student feeding, Abi?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Student feeding. How much do we pay?
10 million.
By Ministry of Education, Abi, is that not so?
Yes.
Yes.
How much? What is the classification into head and subhead of that?
At 2004/7.
2004/7. That is subhead, Abi.
Yes, sir.
Which bank do they pay to? They
They
pay
pay through
that
check.
to which bank?
Through check, CBN check.
CBN. The check number.
A/B.
Come, please. C/B, Abi.
Yes.
846
846 264.
264. Gross amount
10 million.
10 million. Now, do they pay through bank or they pay through cash?
Bank.
They pay through bank. Then we go to the bank and enter it. The second transaction, is it on the same date?
Yes.
What does it mean? What's that one meant for?
WAEC examination fee.
WAEC examination
Fees.
fees. What was the classification?
2004/9.
/9, Abi.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. They also pay through CBN.
Yes.
CBN. Okay. What was the check number?
A/B.
A, Abi.
Yes, sir.
Slash
B.
Okay.
946
6
270.
270. Is that
Yes, sir.
all? A/B.
Yes. 946 270.
946. Amount.
It is
Gross amount.
A/B 946 270.
Is it 9, Abi?
Yes, 946 270.
I'm coming up. 946
270.
0. Okay, thank you. Gross amount?
40 million.
40 million.
Sir,
Any other question?
sir.
Hello?
So we forgot to take note the payment voucher number.
Payment voucher number?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, give me the payment voucher number.
60.
What do you say?
60.
60.
6
60.
60. Okay. What about the second one?
663.
63. Thank you. Good observation. Well done. Now, let's assume you wanted to balance it. Do you understand? They don't ask you to balance, but assuming you want to balance it, what do? You only balance the cash and bank. This is a gross amount. The total money you have received at the debit side, you total it. Now, this is what you have at the debit side. You don't have anything as cash. At the other hand here, you also have your total of your gross amount. This is not possible because you can't spend more than the money you have except you borrowed money. Do you understand? But I only want to show you how to do the balancing. That's all. Now, here you are meant to have a balance carried down. As at what? 30th November 2020. We have balance you are meant to balance it. Balance carried down. The balance carried down will now be how much under the bank?
33,700. 33,700.
3 what?
33,700. That's 33,700,000.
100,000. Is that not so?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
We now add everything here together. Simply means that CBN has borrowed them what? Money to finance the transaction. That is what it means. Indirect money. Because it's at what? It's having a what? A debit balance here. Then we come here under the bank. The same amount will enter as our balance carried down. Will be balance burden that we are showing that we are owing money. Month. That month we have 01 10 20 20. We have balance brought forward down. That is how to calculate it. Any question?
Would that number be negative? That's one under the credit side.
Your line is breaking. Hello?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
I said the number, the 3,700,000 on the credit side? Is it going to be negative or you just leave it as it is?
If you put it at the credit side, it's showing that they are owing.
Okay,
That is
so
what
don't need to put
you
the
don't need to
bracket.
put any sign. Yes, you don't need to put any sign.
Alright.
Okay.
The second question.
Second question. Okay. Alessa, you are raising up your hand. Can you speak up?
So when are we going to, I mean, what's the transaction that we are putting the Phoebe number to that department? Because we noticed that we have treasury and the department Phoebe number. So what is the judgment that, transaction should be
On that, the
put in that
departmental PV
place?
number. Adding being
Yes,
the
sir.
question is giving us departmental PV number, we use it, telling us the department that is responsible for such expenditure. But because we don't have it, that's why we ignore.
Okay.
Okay.
So we priority the treasury on.
Yes.
Okay, sir.
You're welcome. Okay, the next one.
Post the above stated transactions into the cash book.
This is treasury cash book question. Okay. Let's look at that question too. What does that question say we should do?
We should post the above stated transactions into the cash book.
I'm coming. I will check it now. Question number 4. That is Mr. Ajo Nibodi, a revenue collector in the Ministry Court of Doli Local Government. Submit the following information for the. Can you see what I'm reading?
Sir, that's not the next one.
Yes,
Are you
sir.
sure?
Yes, the next one is to post the above stated transactions into the cash book.
That's the next question.
Ignore balances brought forward and displayed.
Is it the question number 2 you are referring to?
Yes, please.
That is what we have done. We've got the diagram. That is the format. Then we've done the posting. Question number 2 says you should post those transactions. We have done that. We've answered that question 1 and 2.
Credit
They
side.
draw the both debit and
Okay.
then post the transaction. We've done that already.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's the same
Question.
treasury and the
Yes.
cash book are same.
Yes.
So they just want to make us confused, right? Okay lah.
Now, let's look at question number 4. Mr. John Nibode, revenue collector in the Ministry Court of Doli Local Government, submit the following information for the month ended 30th June 2008. We have the date, we have the payer, we have the reason for payment, we have the amount. Then the money collected shows under head 200 with the following subhead: declaration of age 01, that's the subhead. We have court fine 04. We have court proceeding document 07. Mr. Aja Onibode deposited the tokens to the sub account officer on the 29th June 2008 with and was issued the treasury receipt number M400-201. The receipts used by him were N800-401 to N800-450. The one issued to Mrs. Miriam Gigado was N800-417 on the assumption that the receipt number N800423 was cancelled and reissued and reviewed. Write up the Treasury collector's cash book and state how to treat the cancelled receipt. Do you have it like that at your own end too?
Yes, sir.
Now, let's go. This is the question. If question is meant to be tested, these parts always come out. Pay attention. Particular question 3 or 4 times when the particular syllabus is being introduced. Okay? What do they call the local government?
Dolly local government.
Magistrate of Dolly local government.
Of Dolly local government. Revenue collector cash book for the month of June. What year? 2008. Debit. What are the headings? The dates. After date, what do we have?
Revenue receipt number.
Revenue receipt number. Revenue receipt number, followed by
Classification.
classification. Then this is subdivided into 2. We have the head,
And subhead.
we have subhead. The next one from
From whom receivable.
From whom receivable. The next one
Amount.
amount. Then followed by date again, Abi.
Yeah.
Then
Treasury receipt number.
receipt number, Abi.
Yes.
Yeah.
Treasury receipt number. Followed by amount, Abi.
Yes, sir.
I'm with you, please.
2nd of June 2008.
2nd of June, Abi.
Yes, sir.
Any opening balance at the beginning?
No, sir.
Okay. Simply means if you have 01 0
6
6
7
2008. But we don't have any opening balance. Zero. Okay, 2nd of what?
June
2nd of June, 02 06 2008. Okay, what is the revenue receipt number? Do you have? Who is the person?
Mrs. Miriam Gudado.
Who is the first person?
Miriam Gidado.
Miriam Gudado. Then we come here, Miriam. Okay,
He has a revenue receipt number.
Number.
what was the revenue receipt number issued to Miriam being the first person?
800
What do you say?
N800
N 800.
417
What do you say?
417.
1417. Now, what does Mrs. Miriam Gida do? What does he engage with the government? What does he pay for?
Declaration of age.
For you to have a better understanding, that's why I wanted to put it there. When you are tracing, you know what and what he paid for. Okay. That aid declaration, what is the head of the revenue relating to what this particular the officer is collecting?
400.
400, that's the head. That one is
No, the
constant.
head 200.
Head is 200.
Head is 200, Abi.
Yes.
Okay.
Sub head is 01.
Is 01. Okay. And how much is it?
400.
She paid 400 naira.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The second transaction.
Niger, yeah, 3rd of June.
What did you say?
3rd of June, Niger,
3rd of June. Okay. Then the receipt number will continue till the time that they cancel one receipt. This one is what? Will be 418. This will also be 200. It's constant. Who is the person and what does he pay for? And what is the sub head of what the person paid for? Who is the person?
Niger Killer.
Is it like this? Is it Niger like this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Niger Killer. Killlah.
Niger Kilabi.
Yes, sir.
What does he pay for?
Court
Court
fine.
fine.
Court fine. How much?
2,000.
2,000.
Sub-ed 04.
04. The next one.
5th of June 2008.
5th of June 2008. This will also be N 800 419. This will be 200. The person.
Mr. Ibrahim.
Mr.
Ibrahim.
Ibrahim. What does he pay for?
Limo court fine.
What do you say?
Court fine.
Oh, sorry. Ibrahim Limo. That's the name of the person. Ibrahim Limo. What he paid for is court fine. You don't need to. That court fine is 04, Abi?
Yes, sir.
And how much does he pay?
8,000.
8,000. The next one.
07/06/2008.
Okay. This will be N 800 420.
40. 200. 07. The sub-ed is
07, Abi?
07. Yes, sir.
Who is the person? What does he pay for?
Gani.
White.
Gani Waidi. How much?
Court proceeding documents.
Okay, he pay for court proceeding documents. Court proceeding documents. How much?
800.
The next person.
09/06/2008.
09/06/2008. This will be N 800
40.
42. This should be 421.
421.
The one they cancelled. The one they cancelled is what? 4 what? That one will not be
423.
423. Then this 200. What does the person paid for?
Court proceeding document.
They also pay for court proceeding documents.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
That's
07.
07. Who is the person?
Beko Ishola.
Ishola. Court proceeding document. How much?
1,200.
The next one.
13th of June 2008.
What does the person pay for?
Declaration of age.
Declaration of age. That's O1, Abi.
Yes.
Who is the person?
Miss
Kudirat
Kudirat
Eniola.
Eniola.
Kudirat what?
Eniola.
Eniola. What does he pay for? That declaration of age, Abi.
Yes.
How much?
400.
The next one?
21st of June 2008.
24th.
First, 2 and 1.
21st, okay. That one they issue to this person is the receipt number
N800 424.
N800423. They will now cancel and issue 424. That's what we are now meant to post. 4800 424. What does the person pay for?
Court fine.
Court fine. That's
04.
04. Who is the person?
Yaro Balam.
How much?
1,500.
What else again?
30th of June 2008.
Okay. And
800
800
425.
425.
200 07.
What does the person pay for?
Court proceeding document.
Court proceeding. That's 07.
Yes.
Who is the person?
Miss Adio.
Mr.
Mrs. Adio.
You. Okay. Court proceeding document. How much?
500.
What else again?
That's all.
Is that all?
Letter.
What's the total now? Total of everything here 14,800. What now happened in the process? After all the collection, what happened?
Mr. Ajoni Bade deposited the takings to the sub-accounting officer.
At what date?
29 June 2008.
29 June 2008. What treasury receipt number been given to the person?
M400 201.
N
M
M 400 201. How much do you, if it is on 29 that he remitted the money?
14,300.
14,300.
Yes, contract.
Then, as at 30th 06 2008, we have a balance. Balance carry down 500. Total we now come here 01 07 20 08 balance brought forward. How much? 500.
500.
That's all. Any question?
No, sir.
Okay. That's the end of this one too. I will need to stop here for today. We'll continue from here in our next class. Then you also ask a question on how do we treat the cancellation of receipt. Anytime a receipt is being cancelled, such receipt will be to draw the two transverse line across the receipt, and the receipt must not be detached from the booklet. The receipt must not be detached from the booklet. You must not tear it. You will leave it there and must not be posted. If peradventure the auditor comes in and check your books, they will check the serial number of the receipt. They will observe that one is missing. That what happened to this one? You can now explain that such receipt is cancelled. They will now ask you to go and bring the booklet. Such must be traced back to that receipt. That is when you will not face any query. But where they couldn't find it, then they will subject that to query. That's all. Any other question? Any other question?
So, yes, sir. So what you just stated now, we must state.
Speak up. I can hear you. Hello?
I'm asking. Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Now talk. I can hear you.
I'm asking that. So this statement you just made, this is what we have to comment for the cancellation of
Of that receipt.
number.
Yes. Such receipt and the receipt must not be detached from the booklet, receipt booklet.
Okay.
That's all. Permit me to end the class now. I will continue from here in our next class. We see how under this part before we move to the next topic. I will forward this one
Thank
to
you,
you
sir.
for you to follow up. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have a wonderful night.